We stand today at the threshold of a great discovery. It is not a discovery of new lands or new technologies, but a rediscovery of an ancient truth that has been hidden in plain sight for 2,000 years. It is a truth so powerful, yet so startlingly simple, that the majority of mankind has overlooked it entirely, seeking complex solutions to problems that can only be solved by a change of heart and a change of mind. The man who brought this truth into the light of the modern age was Emmet Fox. He was not merely a preacher, he was a scientist of the soul. He approached the teachings of Jesus not as a collection of sentimental ethical rules, but as a precise, mathematical formulation of the laws of the universe. Fox discovered that hidden within the Sermon on the Mount and the parables of the Master was a secret formula, a metaphysical key, that could unlock the shackles of poverty and transform a human life from a state of desperate lack into one of overflowing abundance. This is not a figure of speech. It is not a metaphor. It is a literal, demonstrable fact. To understand the magnitude of this discovery, we must look back to the years when Emmet Fox filled the largest halls in New York City. It was the era of the Great Depression. The world was gripped by a paralysis of fear. The stock markets had crumbled, businesses were shuttered, and men who had once walked with their heads high now stood in breadlines, broken by the weight of economic collapse. The collective consciousness of the planet was screaming lack, scarcity, failure. And yet in the midst of this suffocating darkness, Emmet Fox stood at the pulpit of the Hippodrome and later Carnegie Hall, and he dared to preach a radical message. He looked into the faces of men and women who had lost everything, people who did not know where their next meal would come from, people facing eviction, bankruptcy, and ruin, and he told them that their condition was an illusion. He told them that prosperity was not gone. He told them that money had not vanished from the earth. He told them that God had not changed, and because God had not changed, the supply of the universe was just as infinite, just as available, and just as present as it had been in the times of greatest plenty. Prosperity, Fox declared, is not a matter of capital or markets or luck. Prosperity is a state of consciousness. This was a revolutionary statement. It shifted the locus of power from the external world, where the banks were failing, to the internal world, where the kingdom of heaven resides. He taught that the poverty surrounding them was merely an outer reflection of an inner state of fear and limitation. He explained that we live in a universe of mental equivalents. If you build a mental equivalent of poverty, you must experience poverty, even if you are surrounded by gold. But if you can build a mental equivalent of prosperity, you must experience prosperity, even if you are in the midst of a depression. Emmet Fox taught that there is a divine law of supply, just as sure and certain as the law of gravity. If you drop a stone from a tower, it does not decide whether or not to fall. It obeys the law of gravity. It does not matter if the person dropping the stone is a saint or a sinner, rich or poor, educated or ignorant. The law acts impersonally and inevitably. So it is with the law of supply. God is not a whimsical tyrant who decides to bless one man with riches and condemn another to starvation. God is infinite life, infinite love, and, crucially for our understanding today, infinite substance. The universe is filled with this substance. It is the energy from which all things are made. It is the very breath of God. And because we are created in the image and likeness of this Creator, we have the power to mold this substance through our thoughts and our beliefs. The tragedy of the human condition, Fox explained, is that we have used this power against ourselves. We have been given the dominion to create, and we have used it to create prisons of lack. We look at our bank accounts, we look at the economy, we look at the news, and we say, there is not enough. And the subconscious mind, which is the obedient servant of your will, says, so be it, and proceeds to create the condition of not enough in your experience. But the moment you grasp the principle that Emmet Fox taught, everything changes. You realize that you are not a victim of circumstances. You are the architect of your circumstances. You realize that the supply you need is not something you have to struggle to get from the outside. It is something you must release from the inside. Let us go deeper into this understanding. Fox taught that the poverty we fear is a lie. It is a hypnotic condition induced by race consciousness, the collective belief in limitation. When you worry about money, you are essentially worshiping a false god. You are giving power to the symbols money rather than the source of God. You are believing that your supply comes from your job, or your investments, or the government, or your clients. But these are merely channels. They are not the source. If a channel closes, if you lose your job or the market crashes, you panic because you think your supply has been cut off. But Emmet Fox taught that if you understand the law, you know that the source is never cut off. If one channel closes, another must open, just as water flowing down a mountain will find a new path if a rock blocks its way. The water does not stop, it simply redirects. So it is with divine supply. The key, then, is to stop looking at the channels and start looking at the source. This requires a profound shift in your vibration. It requires you to stop identifying as a struggling mortal trying to survive in a hostile world, and to start identifying as a spiritual being and heir to the kingdom. Fox often used the analogy of the electric light. If you are sitting in a room and the light is dim, you do not try to plead with the bulb or argue with the darkness. You simply check the connection. Is the lamp plugged in? Is the current flowing? The electricity is there. The power station is generating megawatts of power. It is available to you instantly. But if your contact is poor, if the wire is frayed, you will sit in darkness. Financial lack is simply a poor contact with the divine source. It is a frayed wire in your consciousness. Fox's mission was to teach people how to repair that wire. He taught that the instrument of repair is scientific prayer. This is not the pleading prayer of the beggar. "Oh God, please give me money." That prayer is an affirmation of lack. By begging for it, you are confirming that you do not have it. You are emphasizing the absence of the thing desired. Scientific prayer, the kind that performs miracles, is the prayer of acknowledgement. It is the prayer of Jesus at the tomb of Lazarus. "Father, I thank thee that thou hast heard me." It is the recognition that the supply is already here, in the invisible realm, waiting for you to claim it. During his years of ministry, Fox observed hundreds of cases where this shift in perspective produced results that defied all logical explanation. He saw debts canceled, lawsuits dropped, inheritances revealed, and careers launched, all from the application of these metaphysical principles. Consider the story of Maria, a case that Emmet documented, which perfectly illustrates the desperation of the times and the power of the truth. Maria was a widow, a mother of 3 young children. She lived in a tenement, and the crushing weight of the depression had taken everything from her. Her husband had passed, leaving her with nothing but debts. She had no skills that the market seemed to value, no family to support her, and her landlord had given her an ultimatum: pay the back rent by the end of the week or face eviction onto the cold streets. Maria came to one of Fox's lectures not out of piety, but out of sheer, terrifying desperation. She was at the end of her rope. She approached Emmet after the service, tears streaming down her face, her hands trembling. She told him her story, a story he had heard 1,000 times in those hard years. "I have prayed," she said. "I have begged God for help, but the heavens are silent. What have I done to deserve this poverty? Why has God forsaken me?" Emmet looked at her with deep compassion, but he did not offer her sympathy in the way the world understands it. He knew that sympathy with her trouble would only validate the error. Instead, he offered her the truth. "Not forsaken you, Maria," he told her gently, "and God has not sent this poverty upon you. Poverty is not a virtue. It is not a test. It is a mistake. It is a misunderstanding of your relationship to the Father. You have been praying to a God outside of yourself, begging him to change a world that you believe is real. But I tell you, the only reality is spirit, and spirit is abundance." He explained to her that her fear was the very thing holding her bondage in place. By focusing on the debt, by worrying about the eviction, she was using the creative power of her mind to reinforce the image of lack. She was meditating on poverty, and the law of mind was delivering exactly what she focused on. "You must stop looking at the problem," Fox instructed her. "Every time you think of the rent, you are digging the hole deeper. You must turn your back on the appearance of lack and face the reality of God." This is the hardest thing for the human mind to do. When the wolves are at the door, our instinct is to stare at the wolves. But the spiritual warrior knows that to defeat the wolves, one must look to the shepherd. Emmet explained to Maria that money is nothing more than a symbol of God's energy circulating in the world of affairs. It is like the blood in the body. It must circulate to be healthy. Hoarding it from fear, or chasing it from lack, constricts the flow. But trusting in the circulation of divine love opens the arteries of supply. "We are going to treat this situation scientifically," Fox said to her. "We are not going to hope. We are not going to wish. We are going to apply the law." He taught her that her subconscious mind was like a garden. For years, without knowing it, she had been planting seeds of fear, worry, and unworthiness. These seeds had grown into a jungle of brambles and thorns that were now choking her life. The eviction notice, the empty cupboard, these were simply the harvest of those old seeds. But, he told her, you can plant new seeds tonight, and the soil of the mind is so fertile, so responsive to the truth, that a new crop can grow with miraculous speed. This is the promise of Emmet Fox's teaching. Time is not a barrier to spirit. In the physical world, it takes a season for a crop to grow. But in the mental world, in the realm of the fourth dimension, the harvest can be instantaneous. A lifetime of poverty can be dissolved in an instant of true realization. The principle relies on the concept of the mental equivalent. If you want a job, you must build the mental equivalent of employment, which is service, activity, and usefulness. If you want health, you must build the mental equivalent of vitality and wholeness. And if you want money, you must build the mental equivalent of abundance. You cannot build a mental equivalent of abundance while you are constantly talking about how expensive things are, or how bad the economy is, or how much you hate the rich. Resentment of wealth pushes wealth away from you. Fear of bills binds the bills to you with chains of steel. Fox taught Maria that she had to change her vibration from one of a needy widow to one of a daughter of the king. It was a radical psychological shift. He asked her to stop acting poor. This didn't mean spending money she didn't have, but rather carrying herself with dignity, blessing the little she did have, and refusing to participate in conversations about hard times. When you go to sleep tonight, he told her, you must not take your troubles to bed with you. The time before sleep is sacred. It is the time when the conscious mind drops its guard and the subconscious is wide open. If you fall asleep worrying about the rent, you are instructing your subconscious to create more debt for tomorrow. You are essentially commanding the universe to keep you poor. This insight is crucial. The mechanism of the mind is always recording. The subconscious mind is the builder of the body and the builder of affairs. It takes its orders from the conscious mind. It does not reason, it does not argue, it does not have a sense of humor, it simply obeys. If you say, I can't afford it, the subconscious says, very well, I will see to it that you cannot afford it. If you say, I am always broke, the subconscious says, yes, sir, and blocks every opportunity for gain that might come your way. But if you can discipline yourself, and it is a discipline, the sternest discipline in the world, to say, God is my supply, and really feel it, even in the face of contrary evidence, the subconscious must bring that truth to pass. Fox knew that for Maria to succeed, she needed more than just a lecture. She needed a tool. She needed a specific focused thought that she could drive into the depths of her soul like a pile driver. She needed a formula that would override the years of negative programming. He prepared her to receive a specific set of words, but before he gave them to her, he made sure she understood the why. Without the understanding, the words would just be empty repetition, like a parrot. But with understanding, the words would become a battering ram of spirit, capable of breaking down the walls of Jericho. He explained that God is the infinite substance from which all things are made. This substance is intelligent, it is loving, and it is plastic to our thought. It wants to take form. It wants to become the coat you need, the food you eat, the home you live in. Jesus said, "It is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom."
It pleases God when you prosper.
This was a startling idea for Maria, who had been raised to believe that suffering was pleasing to God. Fox shattered that idol. A poor man is not a spiritual asset, he would say. He is a liability. You can help no one if you yourself are drowning. God is the owner of the cattle on 1,000 hills. Do you think he wants his children to starve? Does a good human father want his children to go hungry? How much more, then, does the infinite intelligence desire your good? This concept of the prosperity consciousness is the foundation of all of Fox's work. It asserts that there is no such thing as a money problem. There is only a consciousness problem. The money you need is already here. It is floating in the invisible, waiting for you to provide the mental mold into which it can flow. Think of the air you breathe. You do not worry that you will run out of air. You do not hoard air in a box for tomorrow. You breathe freely, knowing that the supply is inexhaustible. You have a consciousness of abundance regarding oxygen. Fox taught that we must develop that same effortless confidence regarding money. As Maria listened, something shifted in her. For the first time in months, the heavy knot of fear in her stomach began to loosen. She began to see that her struggle had not been against a cruel world, but against her own limited understanding of God. She saw that she had been blocking her own good by standing in the shadow of her own fear. Fox saw the light of understanding dawn in her eyes. He knew she was ready. He knew that the soil of her mind had been plowed by her suffering and was now ready to receive the seed of truth. He told her that what he was about to give her was a divine decree. It was a statement of truth that, if held to, would act as a magnet, drawing from the universal substance exactly what she needed to meet her material obligations. He warned her that the days ahead would require vigilance. The senses would scream, "Lack!" The landlord would knock on the door. The children would cry for food. But she was to stand firm on the principle. She was to deny the power of the appearance and affirm the power of the spirit. The battle, Fox said, is not yours, but God's. Your only work is to keep your mind stayed on the truth. You are to align your little personal will with the divine will, and the divine will is abundance. This alignment is what Fox called the golden key. It is the turning away from the difficulty and the turning toward the solution. It is the refusal to accept the verdict of the world and the insistence on the verdict of heaven. As we prepare to learn the specific words that Emmet Fox gave to Maria, the formula that saved her and thousands of others, we must first firmly establish this foundation in our own minds. God is the source of all supply. Not the job, not the economy, but God. Money is mental. It is the shadow cast by your consciousness. Change the mind, and the money follows. The subconscious is the engine. What you impress upon it, it must express. Fear is the enemy. Worry is faith in evil. We must replace it with faith in good. We are now standing on the solid rock of spiritual understanding. We have left behind the shifting sands of luck and chance. We are ready to take up the tools of the master builder. We are ready to learn the specific, sacred words that act as the ignition key for the engine of prosperity. The atmosphere in that study with Emmet Fox was electric with possibility. Maria was no longer a victim. She was a student of the high watch. She dried her tears, not because the money had appeared in her hand. It hadn't yet, but because the hope had appeared in her heart. And as Emmet Fox knew well, hope is the precursor to faith, and faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. She was ready for the formula. She was ready to speak the words of power. She was ready to prove, once and for all, that the promises of Scripture were not empty poetry, but scientific law. We have established the law. We know now that the universe is not empty, but filled with a living, intelligent substance that responds to the impress of our thought. We know that poverty is an error of the mind, a shadow that flees before the light of truth. But understanding the theory is not enough. You cannot eat a theory. You cannot pay your rent with a philosophy. We must move from the abstract to the concrete. We must take this great nebulous power of the divine and focus it into a laser beam of manifestation. Jesus taught us the threefold path of demonstration. Ask, and it shall be given you. Seek, and ye shall find. Knock, and it shall be opened unto you. Many people ask. They beg and plead. Many people seek. They read books and attend lectures, but very few know how to knock. To knock is to take specific, decisive action in the mental realm. It is to approach the door of the subconscious mind, which is the portal to the universal mind, and demand entry, not as a beggar, but as a rightful heir. Emmet Fox discovered that the most effective way to knock, the most direct method to imprint the truth of prosperity upon the deepest layers of the soul, is found in a formula of 3 specific words. These words are not a magic spell. There is no magic in the sounds themselves. The power lies in the consciousness they evoke and the universal law they activate. The formula is this. Let us pause here. Do not rush past these words. To the uninitiated, they seem simple, perhaps even trite. God is abundance. We have heard similar phrases in Sunday school. But in the hands of a master metaphysician, these words are a battering ram capable of shattering the thickest walls of limitation. We must dissect this formula, word by word, to understand the dynamite we are handling. First, God. When you say God, you are not referring to a man in the sky. You are referring to the infinite source, the first cause, the all in all. You are turning your attention away from the problem, the debt, the lack, the fear, and locking it onto the solution. Emmet taught that what you focus on, you magnify. By starting with the word God, you are instantly realigning your mental compass to true north. You are acknowledging the power that created the galaxies, the power that spins the earth, the power that beats your heart. You are declaring that this power is the only true actor in your life. Second, is. This is the pivot point of the universe. Notice the tense. We do not say, God might be abundance. We do not say, God was abundance.
We say, God is.
It is the eternal now. Most people push their prosperity into the future. They say, I will be rich someday. But the subconscious mind ignores the future. It only knows the present. If you say, I will be, the subconscious puts it on a shelf labeled later, and later never comes. But when you say, God is, you are bringing the infinite down into the immediate moment. You are claiming the reality of supply right here, right now, in the midst of the apparent lack. Third, here is the definition of the nature of God. We are not saying God is money. Money is just paper. It is a symbol. We are saying God is abundance. Abundance is the flow of life. It is the overflow of energy. Look at nature. God does not make just enough leaves for a tree. He covers the tree in thousands of leaves. He does not put just enough fish in the sea. He fills it with teeming millions. The nature of the divine is lavishness, extravagance, overflow. When you declare God is abundance, you are stating that the very nature of the reality in which you live is one of inexhaustible supply. You are claiming your citizenship in a universe that knows no lack. Now, knowing the words is one thing. Knowing how to use them is another. This brings us to the specific technique that Emmet Fox taught, a technique that leverages the latest understanding of psychology and the oldest truths of mysticism. Emmet realized that the human mind has a gatekeeper. This gatekeeper is the conscious mind, the intellect, the rational faculty. It is a cynical, critical sentinel. If you walk around during the day saying, I am wealthy, your conscious mind looks at your empty wallet and says, you are a liar, you are broke. It rejects the affirmation. It bounces off the surface like a pebble off a steel tank. This is why so many people fail with affirmations. They fight their own intellect. But Fox knew there is a back door to the castle of the mind. There is a time when the sentinel changes guard. There is a moment when the cynical intellect gets tired and goes to sleep, leaving the door to the subconscious mind wide open. That moment is the state just before sleep. Scientists today call this the alpha state, or theta state. It is that twilight zone where you are not quite awake, but not yet asleep. You are floating. Your critical defenses are down. Your brain waves slow down. In this state, the subconscious mind is incredibly suggestible. It is like soft wax, ready to receive the seal of the king. Fox taught that this is the sacred time. It is the time to perform the great work. The technique is as follows. You must go to bed with a purpose. You are not just lying down to rest your body, you are lying down to program your future. As you lay in the dark, you must deliberately relax every muscle in your body. Let go of the tension of the day. Release the arguments, the headlines, the worries. Let them drift away like leaves on a stream. When you reach that state of drowsiness, that feeling of floating, you are to introduce the formula. You are to repeat the words, God is abundance. But here is the crucial instruction. You must not say them mechanically. You are not a parrot. You must say them with feeling. You must say them slowly, rolling them over in your mind like a sweet hard candy. God is abundance. Emmet taught that the feeling is the secret. The words are the mold, but the feeling is the molten gold that fills the mold. If you say the words with anxiety, you are impressing anxiety. You must strive to feel the peace, the vastness, the reality of that abundance. You must try to touch the hem of the garment of the divine. You repeat this slowly, perhaps 10 times. You do not count on your fingers, for that wakes up the intellect. You simply chant it softly in the sanctuary of your mind until you feel a sense of saturation. Then you add the element of visualization. Fox taught that the subconscious mind speaks in pictures. While you are chanting the words, imagine a golden light. Why gold? Because gold is the color of spiritual substance. It is the color of the sun, the color of glory. See this golden mist surrounding you. See it permeating the walls of your room. See it filling your body. See it flowing through your checkbook, through your wallet, through your business. This light is not empty imagination. It is the visualization of the divine energy that is getting ready to precipitate into physical form. And then, and this is the most important part, you simply drop off to sleep in that vibration. You let the last thought on your mind be abundance. You let the last feeling in your heart be peace. By doing this, you are giving the subconscious mind its orders for the night. While your conscious mind sleeps for 8 hours, your subconscious mind works 24 hours a day. It never sleeps. If you fall asleep worrying, your subconscious spends 8 hours building problems. But if you fall asleep in the consciousness of God is abundance, your subconscious spends 8 hours building bridges, weaving connections, and attracting resources. You are literally working while you sleep. Now, I must address the obstacle that nearly everyone faces when they begin this practice. It is a phenomenon Emmet Fox called chemicalization. To understand this, let us look at the case of Carlos. Carlos was a man of the world. He was a hard-nosed businessman who had built a fortune and then lost it all in a disastrous market crash. He was cynical, bitter, and skeptical of anything that smelled of religion. He came to Fox not because he had faith, but because he had nowhere else to go. His marriage was crumbling under the financial strain, and he felt like a failure in the eyes of his children. Fox gave him this simple instruction. Every night, repeat God is abundance. Carlos looked at him with disbelief. That's it? He asked. I'm losing my home, and you want me to say words in the dark? That is exactly what I want you to do. Fox replied with his characteristic authority. You have tried worrying, and it has brought you bankruptcy. Now try this. So, Carlos tried. The first night he lay in bed and repeated, God is abundance. And immediately a war broke out in his mind. His intellect screamed,
You are a fool. God is not abundance. God is absent. You have no money. The bank is calling tomorrow. This is childish nonsense.
Carlos felt a surge of anger. He felt ridiculous. He felt more anxious than before. He went back to Fox the next day ready to quit. It doesn't work, he said. It makes me feel worse. I feel like a liar. Emmet Fox smiled. Good, he said. That means it is working. Carlos was confused. How can feeling worse mean it's working? Fox explained the principle of chemicalization. He said, Imagine a glass of water that has mud settled at the bottom. The water looks clear because the mud is still. But if you want to clean the glass, you have to stir it up. When you stir it, the mud rises, and the water looks terrible, cloudy and dirty. But you haven't added any dirt. You have simply disturbed what was already there so it can be thrown out. Your mind, Fox continued, is full of the mud of fear and limitation. It has settled there for 40 years. Now you are pouring in the clear water of truth. The collision between the truth and your old beliefs is causing a disturbance. That anger you feel, that resistance, that is the mud rising to the surface. Do not stop now. If you stop now, the mud settles back down. You must keep pouring in the clear water until all the mud is washed away. This is a vital lesson for all of us. When you start this practice, you may feel resistance. Your mind may produce arguments. You may remember every financial mistake you ever made. You may feel a sudden spike in fear.
Do not be afraid of this.
It is the devil, the old negative ego, thrashing about because it knows its time is short. Fox told Carlos, when the negative thoughts come, do not fight them. Do not argue with them. You cannot fight darkness with a stick. You can only turn on the light. When the voice says you are broke, you simply return gently to the mantra. God is abundance. Carlos persisted. It was a battle of attrition. For a week he fought the nightly battle. But slowly the mud began to clear. He noticed that he started waking up feeling lighter. The dread that used to sit on his chest in the morning began to lift. He found himself walking with a straighter spine. He wasn't seeing money yet, but he was feeling power. Then the breakthrough happened. It did not come as a bag of money dropping from the sky. It came, as it often does, through a divine lead. 3 weeks into the practice, Carlos received a call from an old associate, a man he had considered a rival, a man he hadn't spoken to in years. This man had a problem that only Carlos had the expertise to solve. In the past, Carlos's pride would have rejected the call. But in his new, softer, more abundant state of mind, he took the meeting. That meeting led to a partnership. The partnership led to a contract. And within 6 months, Carlos had not only recovered his losses, but had built a foundation that was stronger than before, because it was built on rock, not on sand. But the greatest miracle, as Carlos later told the congregation, was not the money. The money, he said, was just the scorecard. The real miracle was that I lost my fear. I realized that my supply was never in the bank. My supply was in my unity with God, and since God is everywhere, my supply is everywhere. This is the metaphysical mechanism at play. Fox taught that your mental atmosphere determines your experience. Every person carries a mental atmosphere around them. We feel it when we meet people. Some people drain us. They carry an atmosphere of failure. Others energize us. They carry an atmosphere of success. By repeating, God is abundance. In the alpha state, you are chemically altering your mental atmosphere. You are changing your frequency. Think of it like a radio station. If you are broadcasting on the frequency of Poverty FM, you can only receive signals that match that frequency. Bad news, bills, rejections. It doesn't matter how hard you work, if your radio is tuned to Poverty FM, you cannot hear the music of prosperity. The formula, God is abundance, is the dial. Night after night, you are turning the knob. You are tuning out of the static of lack and tuning into the symphony of supply. Scientific studies of the brain now show us that repeated thought creates physical grooves in the brain tissue, neural pathways. When you have thought, I am poor, for 20 years, you have a superhighway in your brain dedicated to poverty. It is the path of least resistance. Your thoughts naturally slide down that road. To build a new road, a road to wealth, requires repetition. It requires a bulldozer. The formula is the bulldozer. Every night you repeat it, you are laying down asphalt on a new neural highway. At first, it is a dirt path. It is hard to travel. That is the resistance. But if you keep driving on it, night after night, eventually it becomes the superhighway. And one day you will find that your automatic thought, the first thought you have when a bill arrives, is not, oh no, but God is my supply. When that shift happens, the demonstration in the outer world is inevitable. It is law. The outer must reflect the inner. Emmet Fox was very specific about the silence that follows the repetition. He taught that after you have repeated the words and visualized the golden light, you must spend a few minutes in absolute stillness. Why? Because prayer is a conversation. When you speak the words, you are talking to God. But in the silence, God talks to you. It is in this silence that the lids come. You might not hear a booming voice, but you might get a sudden feeling of peace. You might get a flash of an image, a person's face, a location, a task to be done. This is the activity of divine intelligence. It is the works that accompany the faith. Many people make the mistake of repeating the words and then immediately jumping up to check their phone or watch TV. This shatters the mold you have just created. You must seal the treatment with silence. You must let the wet cement set. Fox advised his students, treat this practice as a sacred appointment. You would not be late for an appointment with a banker who was going to give you $1 million. Why are you casual with the God who owns the universe? Tonight, you have the opportunity to begin this experiment. You do not need money to do it. You do not need a degree. You do not need to be a saint. You only need the willingness to control your own mind for 10 minutes before you sleep. The formula is ready. The law is listening. The subconscious is waiting. Say it now in your mind and feel the weight of it. God, the infinite, is the present reality, abundance, the overflowing good. As you prepare to use this key tonight, remember that you are not trying to make something happen. You are trying to let something happen. You are removing the dam of fear so that the river of opulence can flow. The river is already there. It has been there since the foundation of the world. It is pounding against the walls of your mind, looking for an opening. Your mantra is the opening. Do not worry if you fall asleep while doing it. In fact, that is excellent. If you fall asleep with the words, God is abundance, on your lips, you carry that vibration across the bridge into the dream world. You are baptizing your unconscious mind in the waters of prosperity. Fox promised that if you persist, if you can get past the mud of the first few weeks, you will see changes that will startle you. Coincidences will happen. You will find money in coat pockets. Discounts will appear. Clients will call. These are the signs following. They are the green shoots proving that the seed has taken root. But you must not dig up the seed to check if it is growing. That is what doubt does. You plant it at night, and you trust the soil. You trust the law. You are now in possession of the technique. You understand the words. You understand the timing. You understand the resistance. The only thing left is the application. We have laid the foundation. We have learned the principle that God is the source. We have learned the technique, the nightly programming of the subconscious mind with the sacred formula, God is abundance. But now we must face the day. We must rise from our beds and walk out into a world that often seems to contradict everything we have affirmed in the silence of the night. This is where the real work begins. This is the crucible where the gold of character is refined. Many students of Emmet Fox ask the question, is it enough to just say the words? Can I just sit in my chair, repeat God is abundance, and wait for bags of gold to drop through the ceiling? The answer, emphatically, is no. Emmet Fox was a mystic, but he was also an intensely practical man. He was an engineer by trade before he was a minister, and he understood how things work. He taught that while the cause of prosperity is mental, the result must be practical. This brings us to the third and final pillar of this great teaching, the law of right action. There is a subtle trap that catches many sincere seekers. It is the trap of magical thinking. They use the affirmation as an excuse for laziness. They think God will do the work for them. But Fox taught that God works through you. You are the instrument. You are the hands and feet of the divine. Scripture tells us, faith without works is dead. This does not mean you have to struggle. It does not mean you have to toil in anxiety. It means that when your consciousness changes, your actions must change to match it. Let us explore the greatest barrier to this flow of action, the guilt of prosperity. Consider the case of Roberto. Roberto was an accountant, a man of precise numbers and rigid morals. He had been raised in a religious tradition that deeply implanted the idea that poverty was holy and that wealth was, if not evil, at least suspicious. He believed subconsciously that to be a good man he had to struggle. He looked at the rich with a mixture of envy and judgment. When Roberto first encountered the teaching, God is abundance, he hit a wall of massive internal resistance. He would say the words at night, but during the day, he would feel a nagging sense of guilt. A voice in his head would whisper, "Who are you to ask for more? There are people starving. You should be content with your lack." This guilt acts as a psychological brake. It is like driving a car with one foot on the gas, your affirmations, and one foot on the brake, your guilt. The result is not movement, it is just noise and smoke. Emmet Fox sat down with Roberto and dismantled this error with theological precision. He asked Roberto, "Does a good father want his children to be ragged and hungry?" Roberto said, "No, of course not." "Then why?" Fox asked. "Do you accuse the Heavenly Father of wanting less for you than you would want for your own son?" You are confusing love of money with use of money. To love money as a god is idolatry, but to use money as a tool to bring good into the world is stewardship. Fox explained that God is the owner of the cattle on 1,000 hills. God is the creator of gold, silver, diamonds, and the fruits of the earth. He did not create these things to be ignored. He created them to be used for the elevation of mankind. A poor man, Fox told him sternly, cannot help the poor. If you are drowning, you cannot save another drowning man. You must get on the lifeboat first. Prosperity is not greed, it is the power to serve. It is the ability to pay your bills, to employ others, to support art, to feed the hungry, and to live with the dignity that befits a son of God. This shattered Roberto's delusion. He realized that his poverty was not a virtue. It was a limitation that prevented him from being useful to God. Once he accepted that God is abundance, included his abundance, his guilt vanished. And what happened? The brakes were released. Roberto began to act differently. He stopped undercharging for his services out of a false sense of humility. He began to value his time. He approached higher-level clients because he now felt he belonged in their company. He didn't work harder, he worked higher. Within a year, his income had tripled. But more importantly, he became a generous philanthropist. He became a channel through which God's abundance could flow to others. This leads us to the critical distinction between inspired action and forced action. When you practice the nightly technique, you are tuning your mind to the divine frequency. During the day, you will begin to receive nudges. Fox called them lids. A lead might be a sudden impulse to call a specific person. It might be an idea for a new product that pops into your head while you are showering. It might be a desire to take a different route to work. These are not random thoughts. These are the works that accompany faith. The mistake people make is ignoring these gentle nudges because they don't seem logical. The intellect says, "Why would I call him? He can't help me." But the spirit sees around corners. On the other hand, there is forced action. This is action born of panic. This is when you run around frantically trying to make money because you are afraid of going broke. This action vibrates at the frequency of lack. It repels prosperity. Fox taught it. Do what lies at your hand to be done, and do it with peace. If you are washing dishes, wash them like a millionaire. If you are digging a ditch, dig it with the dignity of a king. Why? Because you are not demonstrating abundance to get the job. You are bringing your abundance to the job. Let us look at the story of Sandra to illustrate this. Sandra was a domestic worker. She cleaned houses for wealthy families. She felt invisible. She felt that the teaching of God is abundance was for business owners or educated people, not for someone of her station. She felt trapped by her lack of education and her social class. When she came to Emmet Fox, she said, "I am just a cleaner. How can God make me abundant?" Fox looked at her and said, "God is no respecter of persons. The sun shines on the palace and the cottage alike. The only difference is that the person in the cottage often keeps the blinds closed." He taught Sandra that her station was a state of mind, not a geographical location. He instructed her to repeat, "God is abundance," at night, but he gave her a specific instruction for the day. Do your work not as a servant of men, but as a servant of God. Bless every house you clean. Bless the people who live there. Do not envy them, bless them, because what you bless, you attract. This was difficult for Sandra. It is hard to bless people who have what you want, but she did it. She scrubbed floors repeating, "God is abundance." She polished silver repeating, "I bless this wealth." The transformation was internal first. She stopped walking with her head down. She began to take pride in her excellence. Her energy changed from resentment to radiation. One of her clients, a wealthy woman, noticed this change. She noticed that the house felt different when Sandra was there. She noticed Sandra's intelligence and her new air of confidence. One day, she asked Sandra to help organize a dinner party, not just clean for it. Sandra did it with such grace and efficiency that the woman recommended her to a friend who needed a house manager. That position led to Sandra starting her own high-end housekeeping agency. She went from scrubbing floors to managing a staff of 50. She did not need to go back to school. She did not need to borrow money. She needed to change her consciousness from servant to channel of excellence. This proves that your current circumstances do not define your future. They are merely the starting point. God has resources you know nothing about. He has doors that are currently invisible to you. But He cannot open them if you are paralyzed by feelings of inferiority. Now we come to the shield of the law, the force that locks the demonstration in place. That force is gratitude. Emmet Fox taught that gratitude is not just a polite thank you after you receive a gift. Metaphysical gratitude is a scientific force. It is the law of increase. Jesus demonstrated this at the feeding of the 5,000. He did not have enough food. He had a few loaves and fishes. What did he do? Did he complain? Did he beg God for more? No. He gave thanks for what he had. When you give thanks for what you have, you are vibrating at the frequency of having. When you complain about what you lack, you are vibrating at the frequency of not having. The universe is a mirror. If you say, "Thank you," the universe gives you more to be thankful for. Fox suggested a specific practice to combine with the nightly formula. In the morning, before you get out of bed, spend 5 minutes in the practice of appreciation. Do not think about the problems of the day. Think of 5 things, no matter how small, that you are grateful for. The warmth of the bed, the sunlight, the fact that you have lungs to breathe. Then, extend that gratitude to your finances as they are now. This is the hard part. You must bless the $10 in your wallet. You must bless the job you hate. Why? Because if you curse your current supply, you wither it. If you bless it, you multiply it. Fox said, bless $1, and it becomes a magnet for 10. Curse $1 for being too little, and it shrinks to pennies. There is a final danger we must address, the lust for results. This sounds contradictory. We are doing this to get results, aren't we? Yes, but there is a paradox in the spiritual law. If you are constantly checking for results, you are operating from doubt. Imagine a farmer who plants a seed. If he digs it up every morning to see if it has roots, he kills the seed. He must plant it, water it, and trust the soil. Many students practice God is abundance for 3 nights, check their bank account, see no change, and say, doesn't work. Emmet Fox advised a 9-day mental diet. He said, give God 90 days. Commit to the practice for 3 months without looking at the scoreboard. During this time, you are building the new man. You are rewriting 40 years of negative programming. It takes time for the concrete of the new consciousness to set. During these 90 days, you will likely experience a roller coaster. One day you will feel rich, the next day you will feel despair. This is normal. It is the old ego dying. When the despair comes, do not fight it. Just witness it and say, that is the old me. The new me knows that God is abundance. To help you through this, Fox recommended keeping a journal of abundance. This is not a diary of complaints. It is a log of evidence. Every day, write down any evidence of supply. Did someone buy you coffee? Write it down. Did you find a coin on the street? Write it down. Did you get a bill that was lower than expected? Write it down. You are training your reticular activating system, the brain's filter, to spot prosperity. Most of us are trained to spot lack. We walk down the street and see poverty. The prosperity consciousness walks down the same street and sees opportunity. The journal retrains your eyes. As we conclude this instruction, I want to leave you with the vision of what is possible. When you truly master this lesson, you stop being a getter and start being a giver. You realize that you are a distribution center for the divine. The fear of loss vanishes because you know the source is internal, not external. If the stock market crashes, you are calm because your stock is in spirit. If you lose your job, you are excited because you know a better channel is opening. You walk through the world with a royal demeanor. This is the promise of Emmet Fox. It is not just about paying the rent, though the rent will be paid. It is about regaining your spiritual dignity. So, here is your charge tonight. You begin. You will lie down. You will relax. You will say the words, God is abundance. Tomorrow morning, you will wake up and say, thank you. During the day, you will do your work with love and excellence, listening for the still small voice. And when the doubt comes, and it will, you will smile at it and say, you are a shadow. My Father is the light. You are not alone in this. You are surrounded by a cloud of witnesses, the thousands of students who have gone before you, who stood in the breadlines of the 1930s and used this very key to unlock the door of plenty. They proved it. Now it is your turn. Your abundance is not in the future. It is not in a lottery ticket. It is in your mouth and in your heart. Speak the word, live the law, be the channel.